we are keeping our commitment to doing this on the first of every month as we dive into and really celebrate and explore the news story. And for those who didn't join us before, I'll just refresh and say that on January 1st, we usually do an event like this. We decided that this year required or deserved to be gathered more frequently and really be inspired consistently throughout the year, because it is a tricky year. But there is a lot to celebrate, and there is a lot that is forming. And Karen is my co-host today, Karen Sands, who I'm super, super excited we have with us. She's been doing this work for a very, very long time and really been exploring this idea of the news story and what does it mean to pay attention to that piece of it. And and each one will be focused each month on something that's relevant to that month. So because this is the month in which the world will wake up to the fact that women matter, with International Women's Day and Women's History Month, we will dive into that a little bit too and kick that off. So theoretically, Women's History Month kicks off today. Obviously, we believe that this is a topic that is deserving of 369 days a year. But I know it's 364, but today we're going to talk about three things, right? Celebrate the accomplishments of women thus far. Really, it's the state of women in the world right now. So there's lots that we can celebrate and feel really, really great about, and we will do that. There's a lot that's actually really dire and scary and horrific that we should be paying attention to, and frankly, just acknowledge and grieve together for a moment. And we can talk a little bit about what that feels and looks like. And then we will swing to the really encouraging things that we think are moving us in the right direction, particularly from a futurist point of view, and Karen's work in that direction. So sound good? So with that, actually, I think that, Mita, let's just kick off with sort of the intro video to make dive in from there.
We have grown up learning to speak the language of men, but now the time has come for them to learn the language of women.
Solemnly swear to support the constitutions
of the United States of America
and of the state of Minnesota,
and that I would discharge faithfully
the duties devolving upon me
as a city council member.
Congratulations.
For the first time in U.S. history, a majority American city of our size has elected a council, a city council of all women, and a supermajority of women of color. A whole lot of people who were comfortable with majority male, majority white institutions for nearly 170 years of city history are suddenly sharply concerned about representation. My thoughts and prayers are with them in this challenging time.
It's very simple. We have to choose to hold each other up. We have to choose to have each other's backs. We have to choose to make sure that people are brought along with us.
Sorry, that's sort of an abrupt cut at the end, but yes, right? How good does that feel? All these amazing things. And even the fact that the female quotient for her, a majority of that video was cut by them, has become a really big, its own company, its own entity, its own entertainment / education / community empowerment group. So has Hype Women, so have others. So I think it's really interesting to see not only that this accomplishment across all these things, but even the celebration of women and the gathering of women and the connecting of women has become its own business path for many. And we're really grateful for the work that they all do. Welcome Karen Sands, who has been at the forefront of this conversation for so long. We've got connected through the Femme Futurist series that we do for Femme Futurist interviews, because Karen is on almost every single list of top female futurists that you can find around the world. And again, blazed the trail for many of us who are doing this work and following in your steps. So with that, Karen, can you tell us more about who you are and what's on your mind?
I want to say first, I am so grateful for what you and Emma and Mita are doing. I mean, for so many decades, it was a very, very, very lonely path, and there were very few of us females in the futures realm. And for you to have brought this for, I remember being so excited when you first started, and I love that you brought me in to be interviewed. And watching how you've grown this, it fills my heart. It gives hope for where we're headed.
Well, thank you for
Really,
that.
really
So just
does.
separately for guys who don't know, we do have a series called the Femme Future Society, in which we do interviews with women like Karen around the world who are either both practicing futurists and foresight professionals, or people who are just literally building the future, like a space architect or an AI developer or someone who's very much at the forefront of often in very lonely positions, right? There are not very many women who are doing that work as well. And so the idea was not to just talk about women's history, right? And not just to try and correct the systems now, but as we look to the future, this whole conversation right now about who's creating the value, who is influencing what our future will look like is often very much pushed into the dark and very much, obviously, we'll talk about this during the conversation, right? Not funded, not ever referenced in a talk. It's always interesting to me about my male counterparts when they talk about innovation and they talk about the future and vision, they always just quote men. One of the leading futurists I know did a talk that had 10 quotes in it, 9 of which were men. The 10th was Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa, the only woman we could come up with. So we're like, we're trying to help our counterparts have a broader range of voices that they can do and be influenced by. So that's that series, which is like once a month or twice a month, we push out or invite a new one out and we put it into all the podcast places. But this is different where it is, it definitely has a feminine gaze. We do believe that the news story is very much focused on the feminine perspective, not women only, but certainly the feminine perspective, again, exactly the way that Hannah opened up that, which I do think we have spent a long time understanding the way and the language of men. And now there's this invitation in a very critical moment. And that's really the new story, right? Is to be able to understand the language of women and appreciate that as well. So Karen, talk us a little bit about your work for a few minutes, because before we dive into the next thing, we want to know more
Yes,
about
definitely.
a number of books written, what's happening today, right?
Yes. So I've written over 12 books and journals, and I also even have card decks, a new one called Futures by Design. And it's a great starter to, no matter who the audience is, it really starts a deep conversation. I became a futurist really very, very early on in my 20s, and I did not understand that that's what I was. But yet I was always thinking and speaking about the future, changing education, et cetera, all through those years. When I landed in corporate, which was after an international divorce and custody case, I will tell you. So I had to close my own entrepreneurial business at that time and move into corporate. And what a trip that was. So I entered corporate in 1978. I left it in 88 at the top of my game. As the futurist and protege of the chairman of the holding company of Equitable Financial Services. So I went through it all. There's something I encountered that I think we all need to be concerned about, is that there were many women, what I call masculine and drag. So when we talk about supporting each other, which the women just before us talked about, it's so critical, but there's a level of it that's not real. It's not true. They are not working for our benefit as women, even though they are females. So we have to be very, very careful that we don't just walk into situations and become so vulnerable that we'll be sunk.
I have
We
to say, my
have to,
favorite part, I was gonna say, we were talking about the
yeah,
Barbie movie, but we were doing the pre-call for this, Karen, right?
yes, exactly.
And one of my most, to me, the most brilliant part, I mean, that whole movie I thought was really brilliant, and the way that she made the topic of this so important or so visible through the story of Barbie. But the part that I have quoted more and more, and I've actually really like described as the Barbie moment, is the women that had been seduced then by the men, right? When the men became the patriarchy, and all of a sudden the women became seduced by them, and how we need to wake them back up. Right. So the women
Exactly.
are in this space and you know, either give up their power or use their power in less effective ways. Some of them I
Exactly.
think have really been seduced and they think that's just the way to play the game. And I think Sheryl Sandberg and those guys didn't help, right? She was all teaching
Oh,
everybody
totally. Made it
language
worse.
of men.
Much worse.
But then I think that there are others who just don't even realize that they can have that power. I gave a talk to MetLife, and I, did my usual talk and talked about the things I think matter on the planet, whatever. And afterwards, a woman was like, "Wow, you really went there." I'm like, "What did I say that was controversial?" This wasn't about women. This was about the planet. This was
Right.
about in general, how we take care of ourselves, loneliness, all the various things that are affecting the future. None of it was super controversial at all. But she was still thinking that that was like too much. And now she's like, okay, I think I can step in more and I can talk more about this. So I think part of it is all the work that you did, Karen, by helping women who didn't think they had permission to step into that, now step into it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the next piece of that, because we're all aging, and aging has to start from the very early age to the end of life ages, not just start it when we're in our 40s and 50s, which is off the charts, crazy. But what happened to me is my mom at 59, and I was 28 at the time, called me on the phone while my children were little toddlers and said, hey, Karen, I have something to tell you. I said, what is it? And it was on the phone. We had those long cords, right? She said, well, I drove into a toll booth head on. And in my naive young voice, I asked, why'd you do that? And the answer, of course, was because the voices on the radio told me to. So I knew in that split second of time that I had lost my mom and she was gone. And what that did was turn everything upside down for me, because I was an entrepreneur at that time, an educator before that, et cetera. But at that time, it was like, well, then who am I going to be? If I'm going to end up like my mom, how do I want to live this life? And what does it mean to be an older woman? What does it mean to be a woman was already my life story. But what does it mean to be an older woman was just broke out all over. And I had to go deep down into my own deep soul work, as well as look at what's going on in the world around us. And so I then became a gerontologist, so a futurist and gerontologist. And now today, that's exactly where we are. This is where we have to pay our most attention. Women in their 40s and 50s are powerhouses, and they have the ability, they're in the positions now to make those changes. But on the other side of it, like so many of us, they're also burning out and getting really sick. So we have to find a way to help each other balance and choose what's really good for us and choose out when it's not good for us. Take your bat and ball and go to another playing field. Don't stay and get hit over the head constantly. Is a big lesson for us, a really big lesson.
Well, I think this again, sorry to interrupt, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that that's a really interesting challenge in this thing. Where do you stay in the system and keep trying to shove it, shove it, whoops, right, to address it from the inside, right? One of my favorite protagonists in literature is Dagny Taggart in Atlas Shrugged, right? This woman who was like, the whole world kept crashing and kept going into terrible places, and she kept thinking she could somehow save it. So somehow she just stayed there, like, they kept reducing her resources, but she was still going to make sure that that train ran from one end of the country to another. Versus when do you go out and build what Buckminster Fuller would have suggested, that if you can't fix it, like exit the system and go build the next. Any perspective on how we know when it's time to move on to the next or out? Or do we just say,
when you keep getting blocked, it's time to get out. And but for me, it's always been a zigzag, is that I always felt that I had to speak my truth. Whatever that truth was had to be spoken. And guess what? That got me up to the top of the company. So don't be afraid to speak the truth. And if they kick you out, so what? You'll go somewhere else. We have all the gifts we need to go somewhere else. And we shouldn't be afraid of that, whether it's our own or going into another company. But that whole experience about aging and who I was going to become forced me to write a book called Gray is the New Green, which is all about we women and the future of women in aging. And it came out of my big book, which I'm very proud of. I think that's my best work, is called The Ageless Way. And it is a book that talks about us. This is us it's talking about. Who are we? Where did those stories come from about us as women and aging? How do we move through those stories? How do we create the new stories about age and the future? And what's beautiful is there are so many stories that will teach us that what we think aging is not the truth. I'm turning 80 in 10 days. And I am and I am at the peak of my career. At the peak. So for all of you that are not yet 80, just keep on keeping on. Don't give up. You know, and many of you, if you're here, you're already walking on the outer, what I call the outer edge of innovation. You're out there where it begins, where it hasn't even formed yet. You have to stick with it. Don't let anybody push you off that ridge. That's our turf. And we bring those gifts with us, and we must not be afraid of doing that. So I would love you all, of course, to read my work naturally, but it's more that it's a story about who we are as women. And the story only gets better as we get older. Just think about where you've been and where you're headed. Wow.
So I'll give my experience of that, right? When I was in college, we had a woman who came to speak to us as an economics major. Her name, I can't remember now her name, but she was supposed to be speaking to us. And she'd become the first Secretary of Commerce under President Carter. And she was really speaking to us as what it means to have an, economist career. But I only remember is that she didn't start her work until after she'd had 5 children. And then she went back into the workforce and started that rise. And I just had this like giant epiphany as I sat there in this convocation hall thinking, oh my God, I don't have to get it all done before I'm 30. No, but I literally think I have to like think all of these things happen before I'm 30. And I'm like, wait a second, I actually can pace myself forward. That's extraordinary, right? And now I've hit the point where I'll be 60 this year, right? My children are all now either out of the house or they'll be or in college still. And so all of a sudden I've had this like crazy like thing of liberation. I'm like, wait, I can travel anywhere I want. I went to 11 countries last year. I spent 11 weeks outside the US. Like it was a completely different thing. It doesn't mean I didn't love being a mom. It just meant that now I got to have freedom to go do this other side. And so I've been able to be in these career, I don't know what you call them, that stages, and knowing that you get to have these stages as you move forward. And I think some of the, what we really look forward to when I'm 80 is the confidence that comes with being able to have all of this lived experience and be able to see how systems really hold, and be able to see this with greater perspective around all that, right?
Yes.
We also have another Karen
yes.
who will be 80 this year. So Karen Tucker, we're also very excited to see you here and celebrate you. I think that this is a great experience for all of us. And the way that I look at it is like women in the 80s and 90s, even 100, have done such again pioneering work. Rianne Eisler is a woman who I'm very close to, and I've just always championed her work. And there's a woman named Magda
Chalice
Gerber.
in the Blade, right? That was her first underground.
Exactly.
Oh, fabulous! It's still relevant.
Right? And she's still
Very
92.
relevant.
She's still kicking. Like, I'm not just kicking. She's thriving. She's still doing very poignant work. And so I'm a big fan of Rianne Eisler. There was another woman named Magda Gerber. Anyway, you guys did such phenomenal work, right? And I think that women now in their 60s and 70s, we have resources that we can give. Women, as you said, in their 40s and 50s are, in leadership positions where they can affect change. And women in their 20s and 30s have such a brilliant view of challenging the status quo. Right. And hopefully walking in and thinking that they've got ways to really question so many of the systems around us, whether it's marriage, whether it's the 4-day work week or 5-day work week, whether it's the career path that's been laid out in a certain way. Anyway, millions of these things, the planet, how we use our resources. We're seeing so many outspoken climate activists that are in their teens and 20s. So I just think that the whole range of us is
Exactly. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
And I think now for women, it's really, really important at every age to realize that we can truly create our futures by design. We don't have to be stuck anywhere. And that's one of the other things you asked me to share is that what's coming up in September is I am, releasing a new course called Futures by Design. It typically brings in tons of women, especially women 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and even into their 80s. Because this is our time to shine. This is our time for women and girls, of course. So yeah, we have to design it our way. We don't have to follow the old rules. We must not follow the old rules.
Well, particularly because I think, again, in this moment in time, we're facing some incredible crises and incredible shifts and changes, and that we need to step in more than ever. Because not even that it's just that, you know, we get to be this age and we get to be so wise, but the world really, really needs us. Part of the reason I'm in Costa Rica, I get to have this wonderful place by the beach, but also part of a collective of women that are building something they call the Water Temple, or the Agua Es. It's this group of women that are really thinking about the space that might be created at the foot of a waterfall that is all about ushering this in. And so if we can transition now to the challenge, right? We can sit there and say, go girl, and it's been great that we have this amazing year. We can talk about everything from education attainment, and we can talk about home ownership. We can talk about all these places where, just as a reminder, by the way, women didn't have an ability to open or the right to open a bank account in their name in the United States until 1974.
Yep,
Right?
I remember
50
you
years.
had to get signed by your husband or your
I mean,
whatever,
that's just
father,
like,
whoever.
right? It was the Equal Credit Act, I think. And so
Yeah.
we still don't have an equal rights amendment. Let's just be clear on that. And there's many other things that we'll talk about in a second that we're still lacking. So the fact is that we've made such a giant stride in such a short period of time, relatively speaking, economically, is phenomenal. However, it's created its own backlash that we'll talk about in a minute. First, right now, I think to recognize, and this is really, I think, Deborah Thompson in your wheelhouse, is talking about what it means to be in the workforce right now, and what does it mean in society to be well held as a mother. So I would love to introduce you to the work of Reshma Sujani, if you guys don't know her already. She's a very powerhouse Indian American woman. She was one of the first, I think, Indian women who ran for Congress. She didn't make it, but in her 30s, she ran for Congress. She started Girls Who Code, and I think hundreds of thousands of girls now have
That's who it is.
because
Yeah.
of her. Then she moved into this conversation around what does it mean to be a mother, and how our mothers, like, you know, really penalized so much in society, and the burden of child rearing and child care falls so disproportionately on women, particularly in the United States, and on mothers. So she started the Marshall Plan for Moms that has now been called Moms First. And now she is, the excerpt we're going to show is a talk that she gave in Davos at the World Economic Forum this year, I think. Mita.
In the United States, we have the most educated workforce in the world of women, with the least amount of labor market participation. And oftentimes we say that, well, the reason for that is, well, women need more confidence. They just need to lean in a little harder. You know, if they had a mentor, their participation would increase. But what Claudia said is, that's wrong. Actually, what we need to focus on is the structure, you know, is the fact that the United States, you know, we like to tout that we're exceptional. What we are exceptional at is being exceptionally bad at care. You know, we are the only industrialized nation in the world that doesn't have paid leave. The vast majority of American women go back to work 2 weeks after having a baby. 40% of, you know, of families in America are in debt because of childcare. We were just talking about the women in your lab, right? We pay more for childcare than we pay for our rent. And this isn't just a phenomenon that's happening in America, it's happening across the globe. I mean, what we're realizing, especially after the pandemic, is that economies simply cannot function without a thriving structure of care, because workers can't work without care. And economies are going bankrupt because of this. So there are 606 million women, working age women in the world, who are not working because of their unpaid care responsibilities, compared to 41 million men. That is $9 trillion of our global GDP, right? And so government, the lack of government action on this is putting pressure on the private sector, which we're in tight labor markets, to do something about it. And so at Moms First, we're working with over 130 companies in every single sector, you know, from PayPal in technology to, you know, Morgan Stanley in financial services to JBS Foods in manufacturing, who are saying, I don't have enough workers. And since half the population are women, I need more women who can come in and work, and they can't work because they don't have adequate childcare. And so we are working with them to redesign their childcare packages, you know, to increase their subsidies. But part of the impediment on this, so, you know, across the globe, there are not global multinational companies that are investing in childcare, because when you often talk to people when you're walking around the hallway here, CEOs will say, well, it's just too expensive, right? There's this perception that it's too expensive. There's these questions that people ask, well, what are you going to trade if you pay for childcare? And I, with all due respect, think that that is a ridiculous question. Because, you know, what we've found, and we have a report that's coming out with BCG in a month, is that childcare pays for itself. When you offer childcare to employees, you get higher worker productivity, you get lower rates of attrition, you have greater rates of retention, but the data has not existed. And so, we're excited about the information that we're going to be putting out that is going to kind of prove this once and for all, because we have to stop looking at care as a personal problem that I, as a parent or a mother, has to solve, and as an economic issue that world leaders must actually do something about. And the other thing I want to add that I think we've been working on, which I think is interesting, and we're talking a lot about AI, in this conference here, and in partnership with Sam Altman and OpenAI, Moms First released one of the first ever public sector tools on generative AI on care and on paid leave. So we released something called paidleave.ai. So if you are a parent and you live in a state that offers paid leave, you can go to the website and it'll tell you, am I eligible? How much money can I get? And what's my action plan? And the reality is that, less than 20% of people that are eligible for paid leave actually go get it. Because you go to the government website and you're like, I got 10 minutes, I'm really busy, I'm a single mom working in retail, and I can't figure it out. And I give up. And you lose about $10,000 in wages by not actually getting the paid leave that you qualify for. Because, government doesn't do a real good job at customer service. And so we believe, though, that if you actually increase the uptake of paid leave, you not only build a movement of voters and people who recognize the benefits of this. President Clinton used to always say when he goes on airplanes, and he would talk to people, they would come up to him and they'd say, the most important law you ever passed was the FMLA. But because of the FMLA, the Family Medical and Leave Act, which allowed you, if your father was dying, if you had a child who was sick and in the NICU, it allowed you to spend time with them. And so when you give paid leave and benefits like that, it allows you to actually spend that time with your family that you need, and people don't forget that. And in addition to that, it closes, by increasing the uptake of benefits, it closes the poverty gap. We love to talk about AI as worker replacement, basic income, and that's how we're going to do it. But the tool in itself, I think it has other ways of actually closing the income gap and is applicable in so many ways. So my point is that we have to think about care as an economic issue, as an issue where innovation can actually help solve, and put it into that conversation. And I think we'll do radically different things and have a radically different impact, on productivity and on economic gains.
Reshma. I mean,
I would love to say something, Nancy. Can I? Because she's talking all about care, and what she's not mentioning, and something that I'm very involved in and very concerned about, is the whole aging healthcare realm. Here I am, I've been out in the aging field for a long time, as well as the future of, and it's not happening. I gave a talk to 600 people in the aging care health services out in the Southeast. It blew my mind. The data I came back, it is imploding. Now, why is that bad? Well, 99% of the people in the aging and healthcare services industry, or sector rather, are women of all ages, and a lot of minorities as well, right? And so it can't work this way. And what's happening is there's a big movement in the country now, and this is for women and men, of course, and that's aging in place for people who are moving into my age range, or even younger, obviously. You can't age in place because you're not going to be able to afford healthcare. So what's going to happen to all of us when we get into our 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s if you cannot afford to bring in healthcare, people to care for you? So it's not just
that job, right? They don't want that work because they
Yeah,
can't.
but they can't make any money. There's no money. They get paid $10 an hour.
Right.
It's it's
But
a
again, this is
terrible mess.
I'm going to interrupt and saying this is where Rihanna Eisler's work. And if you guys aren't familiar with her, right? Yeah, she wrote The Chalice and the Blade about how we got to the systemic
Yes.
bias against women. And
If you haven't read it, you should. It's an old book. It's a great book.
It's a brilliant book, and it makes you really, really angry when you read it, but it does help you set up. You better understand how we got to the place that we're at right now, right?
Yeah,
but she will also sit there say, because of all of those things, right? Because of the intentional sidelining and pelling from women. We have undermined anything that's a caring profession. So anything that is caring, we trade on people's passion for wanting to take care of the elderly, like take care of children, take care of anything, even the planet, right? People who are really working on that disproportionately are women. So it's one of these things where unpaid care is worth 3 times, I think, of the tech industry, or at least double the tech industry, close to, $11 billion, trillion dollars is what
Wow.
unpaid care delivers to the economy that is not factored in anything. It's not factored into GDP. It's not factored into any metric that we have. And so it becomes this
Right.
thing as we start to imagine this new world, right? The new story. I'm spending a lot of time thinking about the socioeconomic impact of having such increasing productivity because of these tech tools, right? How do we distribute them more effectively? How do we assume that ensure that people have both quality healthcare, quality housing, education, food, and are able to live the life that they want, and we aren't disproportionately taxing women to be our child care providers for free. When I was in the workforce and I worked 4 days a week from the minute I started my career, because a woman I had known before me had shown me the way and that it was possible to ask for that. So it was really great. But when people gave me shit about it, I would sit there and say, I'm basically preparing your workforce of the future and you are welcome. You know what I mean? Like there's no need for me to be apologetic about this. Jennifer knows. Jennifer Zalakar worked with me back in the day when I was feeling and sort of saying it that way. And because we have a small group, actually, if anybody wants to take it off mute and jump into the conversation, we didn't do like a big formal introduction of everybody, and I'm sorry, I'm bad at that portion of facilitating. But Deborah, you work in this world so much. If anybody else wants to add anything, Becky, I appreciate you guys putting things in the chat. Emma usually is there facilitating the chat because she is actually not here. Mita's acting as Emma because Emma's in the car. We don't have as active a chat going, but we don't need it because y'all are here. So jump in. Anybody have thoughts? No? You gonna let me and Karen?
I have
yeah,
some.
just
Go
gonna
ahead,
say
Deborah.
that what Nancy said is, so I'm Vice President of Human Resources at Hologic. Many of you know we are champion of women's healthcare around the world. We just presented at Davos, so a lot of things, but it's just amazing to me. And just this week, I had one of my team members like sobbing in my office, right, around just the stress of being a mom and and it takes you back and go, oh my God, how little we have come. I mean, in so many ways.
Yes,
So
yes.
we still aren't there. And all I will say is all of the things that you said is true. And in the United States, we are woefully ill-equipped. And these jobs are not, they're low paid. They are high turnover. They are not safe for our children. And I don't need to say anything else.
So the question is again, what is the new story? And I think the new story
Yeah.
is exactly the question was set up, which is that the economic benefits of doing all these things,
Right.
right? If we really want to go just through the economic lens, the reality is we've been doing it the least efficient, most effective,
Right.
productive way. And then if we can turn the corner, that it actually becomes the most productive way of being able to do things. I go again, give talks every world, and people are all looking for that productivity edge with AI. Well, like the productivity edge is a 4-day work week. Right, all the data is showing that we work a work week or more flexible work. We get all the increases in productivity that we want. We get engagement. We get a higher retention. We get people working more collaboratively, less ill. Like it's all those things, right? And the people who are pushing that are the people who have care responsibilities and want to be able to manage them more fluidly in their lives. So this is the turnover. This is the shift that we're heading to. And the more that we can show the data, advocate for it, test it in our own environments, right? People in my world, I keep encouraging them to at least check it out and try. Right? It was good enough for Microsoft in 2019. They saw a 40% lift in Japan. You might as well give it a try. They are the most valuable company in the world right now. So just trying to tell those stories, right? Encouraging people to make bolder moves in those directions as we move ahead. We can shift now to the fact, okay, we're making headway in those arenas, right? We can hopefully, when Reshma get more and more of a world stage to be able to talk about it and we can support them. Here's the thing that really scares me is the backlash against all this, right? All the statistics that go the other direction. Deborah got out, but I was still in Texas most of the time. It's a very, very scary place to be if you're a young woman, and not even like we can have a big conversation around what we could do to really rethink abortion as a choice in the United States and have a much more thoughtful conversation about it. But we're even at the point right now where my neighbor said when she was pregnant and they needed to induce labor, at this point, you can't even induce labor in Texas because it's considered potentially harming the length of a child, right? So we're going to see more and more deaths. We're going to see more and more just absolutely tragic situations that are happening in states across the country, which is very, very frightening to me that we're going so far. I was shocked. I never thought Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned
Exactly.
not as dramatically as we did. And as to Karen's point, Alabama now joins the list of just, absolutely insane places. Again, I'm excited about that. We're not excited. Was encouraged during the midterm elections when women showed up at the polls and reversed some of those decisions in Ohio and some other states around the country. So hopefully that anyone's, really thinking about that as we head into the presidential and other elections around our states and local government will pay attention to that. But I think that's awful. Certainly you see the backlash against women around the world with a tremendous amount of violence. There was back something you said before, Karen, there was an article that came out over the summer. 9 out of 10 people are biased against women. So not just men, right? 9 out of 10 people are biased
Exactly.
against women who still believe it's okay for men to beat a woman. That women aren't able to hold office and shouldn't be able to be given responsibility. So the exciting part is that it's great that the statistics are moving in the right direction in terms of our ability to achieve, but we are dropping out of government, right? We had more women that were actually senior prime ministers or presidents around the world, and now that we're losing, we have women that are dropping out of CEOs. So I think that's an important conversation to have too, which is how do we support women who step into these positions and then just get bashed in them. Jacinda Ardern so bravely tried to be a new mom and a prime minister during COVID, during an earthquake, during
It's amazing.
a shooting in a mosque. I mean, she just had it over and over and over again. And at one point was just like done. Like she couldn't do it anymore. So I open that to you, Karen. Any thoughts you have around the current state of women and the grief that I have been feeling very dramatically in taking Rhiann's work and recognizing again that we're regressing, not progressing on the
Well, the system is regressing. And the system is a dissipative structure. That's basic physics, by the way. So it's like we're vibrating and we're shaking it up, and it's going to have to either disappear, right? Dissipate, or it's going to shift to a higher level. So we have to hold on to the fact that it's going to shift to a higher level and that we're part of that shift. That is so important to hold on to. It's what gets us through. So, the more powerful we get, the more influential we get, the harder the backlash will be. And that's all that's really going on now. Look at our politics. It's all just backlash.
Yeah.
Going against wokeness, right? Wokeness, come on. Hello. We've been talking about awareness and self-development, and professional development, but we can't be woke. It doesn't make any sense other than to explain it as it's fear-driven. And it's clearly white male and women who are really masculine and drag, who are so afraid of what women's potential is. So we have to leave the places that won't let us be who we are, and we have to create new opportunities. But one of the things we screwed up with in the early feminist movements, we didn't really support each other. We went against each other. And it's still going on.
I never watched that the movie, the Miss America, the story about Phyllis Schlafly and Gloria Steinem. I couldn't actually watch it because I just made me too freaking mad. So
yeah. So we have to really be honest about supporting each other. And there are plenty of men that want to support us also. And the feminine is rising. It is the feminine rising in men and women. It's not just women. We just carry it better. We understand it. It's who we are. But it's rising and spreading, so we have to keep feeding it.
I feel very strongly about that too. One of the end quotes I have sometimes in my talk when I talk about people who are really demonstrative of the kind of leadering that I think that we need in the world is Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft. And there's a headline from CEO magazine or Leaders magazine that talks about how he leads with empathy, listening, poetry, and collaboration. right?
Yeah.
And he's literally the most successful company, or at the head of the most successful company financially in the world. And so, like these things, again, work for you. These are productivity advances in them. And I think the more that we can celebrate them and make space for them. But I think in the chat, if you guys want to jump in here too, Kimfer, you were talking about
Yeah,
the
please.
right, of women and women of color. There's another woman I know, Deepa, whose name is so beautiful, but I can't even get to pronounce it. But she was a senior executive in Deloitte. I think she was a partner in Deloitte as again, as I think an Indian woman, and started seeing everyone around her so ill, women of color who had worked so hard to get to this place, and were having disproportionate illnesses and I can't say immunology. What am I saying? The immune disorders, neurological disorders, et cetera. And so she wrote a whole book called The First, the Only, The First, the Few, and the Only. What does it mean to be in that, hold that space as well? So if anybody else wants to jump in and sort of make that more visible, I appreciate again in the chat that you guys are talking about that. And before we transition again to our higher selves, I will say again, as part of this women's circle that I was here last time I was in Costa Rica, we had many of these same conversations with a medicine woman who was wonderful and talked about the story of the eagle and the condor, the dominance versus the more collaborative, and how we were trying to get back into harmony around that. But we spent time grieving. We actually went to a ceremony that we created at a fire under the moon one night, and we literally held space for what it feels like to have had to fight so hard to get here, right? The privilege that is bestowed upon others is something that we have to be grateful for, or take so much energy to get to the same place, and that it was okay to actually hold both the anger and the sadness and the frustration and the fear around some of that, and to make that more visible. And I realized after I had this, sat in a crying circle with 12 other women and 5 men supporting that as well, and feeling their own grief, that we as a society haven't allowed ourselves to be in that space. And that part of when you talk about illness and the continual rise, right, as you were worried, we talked about Epstein-Barr before we got on the call, Karen, that I think being in a place where we can actually let the grief of our own situation, not just the grief of loss around us, be part of our practice. You want to talk to that about that for a minute?
Well, yeah. Well, I was saying that I just knocked Epstein-Barr out of my life, hopefully for a long time, but I was knocked out for about 9 months, 6 to 9 months. I mean, literally flattened. So I'm only just coming back. But it is an illness that is spreading like wildfire. And it's hitting women more than men, much more than men. Not that men wouldn't get hit by it, but women are being taken down by it. And it's related to extreme trauma, as in stress, but traumatic stress like loss and grief, which is why Nancy picked up on this thread again, right? And that's what I was going through. I lost 5 or 6 mentors in a matter of 2 years. I mean, people I loved who really supported me to the hilt. And the last one was in November, and he had been my mentor. He tapped me when I was 31, and he was the chairman of the holding company of Equitable Financial Services. And so I had quite a career due to him. And we remained extremely tight. He died at almost 105 in November. So we've been together for a long time.
I think that's pretty good
But
life.
yeah. And that loss and the others, I mean, I've had, that's another topic I'd like to talk about actually. But that grief just took me down. And that's when Epstein-Barr goes, woo, this is party time. And there you go, you're wiped. And it's hitting women in numbers I can't even tell you. I wanted to do research on it, but now more research is just beginning to come out on it. So be aware of it. If you're in high stress, you all are, you're all out in the workforce. You're all in high stress situations, right? It's going to hit. So you have to do everything you can to take time out, to take pause, to get deep within. Go get some coaching, go get some therapy, get to know who you really are and why you're here and what you really want. And then you can break away from that. You don't have to get slammed.
Yeah,
It's
and I would
so
say for
important.
me, the collective grief of being in space with others, because there's time that you try and hold all this stuff by yourselves, but when you're in a space where you get to hold it with others,
Oh, fabulous.
it's a very, very, very different experience and a very different release. And I found myself actually being able to bounce back in some places of joy that I think I hadn't allowed myself because this other thing had become so weighted. And for me, it was less about an individual loss. It was just the feeling of what is happening in the world right now and feeling what's coming, right?
Yeah.
Anticipating.
Yeah. And that's hitting all of us. It's hitting all of us, whether we talk
Absolutely,
about
we
it or
don't have
not.
space for that. Okay, well, so then we're going to change the mood here just for a second because I realize I'm not following my own agenda very well, and we are really done by half hour because we recognize it's a Friday night and people have things to go do. So I think what we found is some really great tutorial, Karen, that we get to share with you right now about how to prepare young women to be in the
good.
world. So I won't tell you who it is because I'll tell you more about her afterwards. But this is a really so Mita. If you guys don't know Desi Lennox's work, it's so great. And she,
Oh,
again,
fabulous.
face as a comedian, right, on the Daily Show, but to really point out, as some as Becky just read, there's nothing like kids, right, and comedians to point out the ridiculous. And so she's able to make really powerful statements through comedy and through her satire around things. And I just love all the stuff that Desi does. She has another one about mansplaining, which is a great thing with Trevor Noah, where they go back and forth. I couldn't find it for this, but it's so genius. So anyway, yay for Desi as we go to that. So we will now also just say, actually, no, well, I was going to do an audible, but I think I will mess up Mita if I do that. So let's stick with the original video thing. So our buddy Elliot Kotek has been working on a film, a documentary called Black Girls. So this goes back to the conversation again about intersectionality and about the role models that we have or don't have as we move forward. So they have created a movie. We just asked us if we could show the trailer, which was perfect for this moment in time. So I'll let the trailer go for itself. It's available for free online. I don't know exactly, I remember the platforms for it. So sorry, Elliot, I'm doing a really poor job setting this up. But in the document that we send with this, we'll have all the links to it so you can find the movie, but I'll just show the trailer.
As a Black woman, trauma is not our resting place. We do not have to stay down. We need to dismantle doing it all and calling it love.
I was told that I could be granted time, but they would not tie it to pregnancy. And to me, that just wasn't okay.
There are a lot of young girls that haven't developed the resilience yet. And I thought, oh, hell no.
This poem is about joy. It's not about water remnants, evaporation, or sand, or thirst, or dry fruit, or hinges, or being hung. Today, a Black woman could smoke a cigarette, could laugh. This poem is about joy, how we remember it in us, always.
It's a 76-minute film. It is available on Xfinity and Flex for free. Apparently they did a companion piece, I think it was in 2020, called Black Boys, who are also suffering in their own right and have their own needs for support and for mentorship and examples. So I just think these are beautiful films that he's done in companion. And a big thank you again to Elliot for having done that.
Nancy, can I add something here? One of the things that I'm concerned about is mastery. And many of us, especially women, is we give it up to others. We don't own our own mastery. And one of the contributing factors is we've been taught that there's only one way to approach our lives and one way to approach our career trajectories. And typically it's staying in a vertical system, right? When in fact, the best way to excel, and I know it from my own life experience, is I followed the masters. When I got out of school, I realized that nobody knew what they were talking about because I hadn't done it in real life, but the masters did. And so I synchronistically, as well as intentionally, only studied with the masters. And that's how I became a master.
What women did you study with, Karen?
Oh, Frances Hesselbein was one of the most brilliant business women and social service women. fantastic. And there are many, many more. In the personal growth and the future of women, psychologically and developmentally, was Marion Woodman, who was, if you haven't read her work, it's not an easy read, any of her books, but they are phenomenal books about women and who we are to become. So I've had many, many women as well as men who have been fabulous masters. But the reason I'm telling you that is you can't make the zigzag moves going up the vertical climb. You just can't. You have to make zigzag moves and meet the masters who can show you the way.
Okay.
It's really important. So don't get stuck in one company. Don't get stuck in one career. We live such long lives now. Someone said to me, "You've had 9 or 10 careers." I probably have. I don't stay long enough to, to go look back at them. But that's what you all have to realize with our elongated lives, for women especially. There are so many more opportunities. So don't get stuck. Keep moving.
No, I agree.
Keep
I agree with all that.
experimenting.
And I think women on this call, I think, are women who are examples of that for many young women in their life as well. And it's funny because I wouldn't necessarily say that masters have been my guide, but there have been very, very many influential women who have done things that I felt like were ways in which they walk through the world that I wanted to emulate, and they gave me the courage to go do the same.
But that's mastery. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
You sought out the people who had mastery. Exactly.
Yeah, but yeah. Okay, then I guess I did. With that, we will introduce music. We also would love to have music as part of these events. And so we have Tania Sanders, who was with us on February 1st, has become our musical director for this series, the new story. And so she brought us this amazing duo called the Troubadours of Divine Bliss. And the minute we heard their name, we're like, yes, we're in. So they've done 2 songs, one now, and then one we'll play at the very, very end as we close. They were going to do it live, but they have some inconsistent Wi-Fi, so they recorded this for us. So this one is very specifically done for us. It's called Be Brave.
Hello, troubadours of divine bliss here, wishing empowerment, healing, love, joy, and so much courage to every woman around the world. Be brave, hold your head up high, your spirit's high enough to reach the sky. Be brave, baby, set yourself free. It's time to take part in your destiny. Ooh, la 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 la. I've been broken, I've been used, lost my voice, lost my muse, trampled by the best. Oh, oh, yeah. Let my voice out, let it shout, let it scream, let it fall down like rain. Shattered dream. Front of you. Be brave, hold your head up high, your spirit's high enough to reach the sky. Be brave, baby, set yourself free. It's time to take part in your destiny. Ooh, la 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 I can hear myself, never call myself, never call myself. La 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 la. La 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 la. Well, it's never too late to dream again. It's never too late to dream, my friend. It's never too late to dream.
It's beautiful.
Right? Does that not just feel so good? And again, when I think that these two women do, Amy and Renee, they're multi-hyphenates, right? They go back to, they don't just do whatever you want to say, just singing. They have done 9 albums, but they describe themselves as spiritual, environmental, and social justice advocates, speakers, podcast hosts, retreat facilitators, and celebrants. So they have this, again, very, very rich life in which they do all this. I think it's exciting to know that they have a live concert series on Sundays on YouTube. It says with Bliss Sundays with Bliss on YouTube, so you can follow them every Sunday there. I don't know what time. Maybe we can put that in the link when we move forward. But I just think, again, celebrating their work and the fact that they are taking this work and bringing it across all these different domains of our lives and our changing and this the arenas in which they play, which then takes us to the last piece of content, and I think a good segue to even what we'll do in April. So in April, we'll talk more about planet and what's going on, obviously, in the environmental conversation as we head into quote unquote Earth Day, which we're now going to be, Earth trauma every day. But into that, really what will be at the front end of that conversation and those solutions is investing more in women and girls. This goes back to the same conversation over and over again. So Kate Wilkinson is a writer. She's been very involved in the project called Project Drawdown, which is 93 very tangible ways and practices in which we can improve the condition of the earth. She wrote another book about it, and she gave a TED talk here about why it's important to invest in women and girls if we want to get to the place we want to get to. So this again becomes the encouraging part of when we move forward, right? When we invest in women and girls, we'll be in a stronger place. So we'll go with Kate. It's a great talk to go all the way through. And just be clear, Becky, when you're putting in comments that I might make ragey faces, I am not raging at you. I'm raging at the outrageousness of the fact that we have to make that visible. So just to clarify that I am not speaking against that. So anyway, Kate's work is great. And obviously this work is really important as we think about it. One of the things that gives me the most hope as we move into the future is this large transfer of wealth that is coming now as boomers and seniors, I guess, and boomers continue to age and transfer their wealth. And it's happening disproportionately for women. I think it'll be like anywhere between 84 and 112 trillion or something is what people are predicting. And it's a combination of the fact that women live longer than men. There are more single women. We do have more control now over our finances than we've had in the past. And so as women who hold this amount of wealth, we spend it differently. Just like women who are in office think about things more horizontally. Interestingly, we've got this big, huge gap, right, between VCs who only give 2% to women-only led companies, but microfinance goes 98 or 99% to women. So we're in this space right now where the financial systems aren't really aligned with how it is that we will make sense of that moving forward. But the good news is that we'll have more power in that direction. And again, if I encourage anything, it's that we'll see more women running for office, but actually supporting and getting out there and voting and encouraging for voting across the board, not just for federal elections, but for state, for county, for judge, for school board. All these things are critically important as we move forward and are really the big opportunity that we have moving ahead. So we are at 7:31. Anything else you want to add, Karen? We have a bit of close that we're going to go do, but
I'm just, as much as we're seeing the downside, I am so excited about the future. The possibilities are enormous. And I agree with you. It's all in our hands. We just need to take it.
Yeah, we just need to take it. Sounds like, for me, I really do want to honor the the barriers that still sit in the way. And
Oh,
work
yeah.
collaboratively together to try and work our way through them, right? Lift each other up, encourage each other in every meeting, build again
Exactly.
resources for it. So I think that it's been a little bit of a lone wolf thing in some ways in my world and the generation that I grew up in. And I want to make sure that we're feeling this more as a collective and making those voices more seen. So thank you again for all the work that you have done as we've gotten there. There is this a poem that we will actually, before we do that, I think maybe we'll do it now. I'm trying to decide. We're going to sing happy birthday to you, Miss Karen Sands. Also going to sing an early happy birthday to Karen Tucker. So we've got these two amazing Karens that are going to be turning 80 in this year. And we are super, super again, grateful that you're here tonight. Grateful for all the work that you've done. Grateful for the role models that you've been, Jennifer and her sister, and to the rest of us. So we're going to take a moment first now to sing happy birthday collectively, and then we'll go to the close. So Mita, do we have a candle?
Yes, it's in the chat.
Okay, good. We'll go with the chat.
Okay.
All right. So, oh, there it is. Oh, a digital candle. Okay, so kids, like, turn on your mics. Because nobody wants me to do this alone. Nobody wants me to do this alone. So, are you ready?
I'll try.
1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Karen. Happy birthday to you.
Oh my God. Note to self, next time have music with this.
We just need a new song. We need a new birthday song. It's the hardest song in the world to sing.
Very true. For those of us who just had to sit through the recording of this, God, I'm so sorry. But,
that meant so much to me. Thank you so very, very, very much.
So meant with love to both of you.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
I hope you celebrate it in many, many, many extraordinary ways. And part of that, actually, so the poem that we're going to read at the end, and Mita, Zamita is going to read this on my team. But when I came across this several years ago, I was going through a rough patch in my life, and I felt like I just, again, had the weight of the world, and as a mom, and I was getting divorced, and I was a single mom, single breadwinner. There was a lot that was going on, and I was trying to figure out how to be perfect in all domains. And I came across this. So you probably guys have seen it or heard it before, but it felt like the right thing to say now, because although there's a lot of collective work to do, we hold a lot of it individually on our own shoulders, and this is permission to let go.
Hi, everyone. I'm standing in for Emma today, but I'm going to be reading She Let Go by Sapphire Rose. She let go. She let go. Without a thought or a word, she let go. She let go of the fear. She let go of the judgments. She let go of the confluence of opinions swarming around her head. She let go of the committee of indecision within her. She let go of all the right reasons. Wholly and completely, without hesitation or worry, she just let go. She didn't ask anyone for advice. She didn't read a book on how to let go. She didn't search the scriptures. She just let go. She let go of all the memories that held her back. She let go of all the anxiety that kept her from moving forward. She let go of the planning and all of the calculations on how to do it just right. She didn't promise to let go. She didn't journal about it. She didn't write the projected date in her day timer. She made no public announcement and put no ad in the paper. She didn't check the weather report or read her daily horoscope. She just let go. She didn't analyze whether she should let go. She didn't call her friends to discuss the matter. She didn't do a 5-step spiritual mind treatment. She didn't call the prayer line. She didn't utter one word. She just let go. No one was around when it happened. There was no applause or congratulations. No one thanked her or praised her. No one noticed a thing. Like a leaf falling from a tree, she just let go. There was no effort. There was no struggle. It wasn't good and it wasn't bad. It was what it was, and it is just that. In the space of letting go, she let it all be. A small smile came over her face. A light breeze blew through her, and the sun and the moon shone forevermore.
That was beautiful.
I say take a deep breath.
Yeah.
My ladies and my friends and the men who support us in our lives and take such good care of us. And I really want us to be the contributors and the extraordinary lights that we are. I am so grateful for each of you. I'm so grateful again for Kelly and for the men who support us. And I am grateful for Sapphire, who wrote something that gave us a permission to let go. Right? It's like, I just can't say it any better than that. So with that, I will say thank you guys for joining us. We will do this again on April 1st. Again, it will be focused more on climate. We've got an amazing co-host from Dubai, my friend Eli Colombo. And we've got an amazing thing to close with at the end. So we've got a great content there as well. We're grateful for your time. And we will play one more song from the Troubadours for Divine Bliss as we close out, and then we'll just say goodbye. But Karen, thank you again for making time and space to be with us
It's
today.
beautiful. Thank you.
And thank you, Mita, for pulling all the pieces together. Thank you, Emma, who will watch this as a recording, for being an amazing team. Thank you, Tania, for bringing us Troubadours of Divine Bliss. And thank you all for being the extraordinary women that you are. And men.
Fall down 7 times, I get up 8. Tell me I can, I'll show you I can. Hold your head up, keep your chin up, don't give up, don't give in. Don't get depressed, get determined. Don't get depressed, get determined. I'll be alright. Oh, I'll be through the fight. I can see no light. Stare into the eye of the storm. I'm here. I'm still here. I'm here. Oh, yeah, planting my flag on the moon, no plan to reach the ground. Living and learning and loving it on, I can't stop now. Standing and dealing, touching and feeling, speaking to listening, shouting to sing, down to praying, despairing to believe. I'll be alright. Oh, I've been through the fire. I can see the light. Stare into the eye. So here, I'm here. I'm still here. I'm here. When I know that I will see the root, the fruit of the tree, my heart escapes the bars of its cage. My soul shines when it feels its wings stretch out. Oh,
I wish I could do that. I'm gonna back in my next life. I'm gonna be able to be a singer-songwriter. No, I'm not gonna make it in one of my 9 lives this round, Karen. But I think for that. After that birthday song, I think it became pretty clear that it should not be in this lifetime. But anyway, God bless you guys very much. Good night. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
And we'll see you April 1st. Spread the word. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Nancy, are you still there?
Yeah.
You know, I just have to tell you, I was holding back tears when we were talking about grief and female role models. You know, I worked in investment banking, corporate finance, insurance. I sat around with a lot of old white men, very rarely with another woman in the room, and she was generally not very supportive of me. And so it was when I met Nancy, you were the first woman who was really like, not just supportive and encouraging, and I didn't get to see you that often, but I looked forward to it all the time, and so I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh my God, that makes me tear. Thank you.
Sorry, we were in such a high mood, but I always, I admire you and respect you. You're one of the smartest people I know, so I appreciate you doing these every month, and it's very inspirational.
Well, and I think that being able to say that, Leora sent me a note saying I love you during the middle of this call, right? Because it takes time to do this. There's things I flubbed that I wish I'd done brilliantly when I watched this video. And so it just feels good to know that you're in a safe space with people who really do care about the intent more than the absolute perfect execution of all this. And I'm surrounded by amazing women. And I'll just say, Leora and I met because she called me. I had an URL called Women You Need to Know. We had people you need to know, and then we had women you need to know. And she wanted to be able to buy it and use it for something. She had a Women's Speakers Bureau. And I remember being at the airport going, oh God, I don't have time for this call, blah, blah, blah. And the minute I got on the phone with the oral, it was like that same kind of like connection, right? The thing. We've barely seen each other in person over
remember that we've only ever seen each other one time. In all these years.
Wow. Yeah. But it feels like I don't need to see her, right? We were really
Oh no, twice. You've seen each other twice, 2 times.
Soul and whatever. So you meet a woman like this, right? And you get to hold on to, and that's why I was so excited when you came back when I got to see you here, because I haven't seen you in forever either, Jennifer, right? And now that I get to see you here, it's like the exact same thing of when we've got to be in those times together and those insurance meetings. And it's like, what a privilege to meet your mom.
Thank you for welcoming her.
Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And how wonderful too. I'll just share that hearing other women voice what I've experienced, especially in the corporate world for so long, it really means something. And I can't wait till April 1st. I'm psyched. Thank you, Jennifer.
Well, thank you. We'll do this every month. Be the good for us to hold the space too. And Kimfer, thank you for being such a champion and staying here for all the comments. And we haven't, I think, done a well-rounded enough job fully to talk to the full female experience of all. So we will continue to make it more broad. So thank you for always making sure that there's a more perspective in the comments and just for being you. So thank you all. Bye, guys. Big hugs.
Thank you.
Bye, Nancy. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.